When discussing the mechanics of power and the methods of controlling the minds of the masses, there exists an immutable and cold principle that every ruler understands. Whoever controls the lens through which the people perceive the world holds the throne. Every era has its own tools to shape this lens, but the methods of application must constantly evolve to suit the circumstances. One of the most sophisticated and ruthless evolutions of our time is the transformation of the very nature of media. A great reversal has occurred right before our eyes, yet few have noticed. In the past, people sought out newspapers and news to acquire knowledge. Today, an individual must already possess knowledge and sharp discernment just to be able to read the news. Why has this ruthless reversal occurred? To answer that, we must strip bare the strategic traps laid by the elite and those who wield power. The first shift in mechanism lies in transitioning control strategies from scarcity to surplus. In the past, information was a luxury. Monarchs and ruling classes of old governed the masses by maintaining a state of information drought. They suppressed, hid, and only dispensed carefully selected droplets of truth through public proclamations or exclusive gazettes. When information was scarce, people naturally craved it. They read the papers to absorb knowledge, but in reality, that knowledge was merely the narrative the ruler wanted them to believe. This mechanism was effective for a long time, but it had a fatal flaw. When humans are blindfolded and kept in the dark for too long, curiosity arises, leading to acts of resistance. Underground currents of information would begin to seep through, directly threatening the power structure. Recognizing the fragility of traditional censorship walls, modern rulers have brilliantly shifted tactics. Instead of maintaining a drought, they have flung open the floodgates and created an information deluge. The elite understand that the best way to hide a pebble is to throw it into a field of stones. Today, they no longer go to the trouble of hiding the truth. Instead, they saturate the media landscape with an endless stream of chaotic news, baseless theories, half-truths, and blatant lies. Censorship is no longer achieved through silence. It is achieved through noise. When tossed into the middle of this massive torrent of information, an average person with linear thinking immediately suffers from cognitive overload. The collective mind of the masses is not designed to process thousands of conflicting data streams every day. The inevitable consequence is that they become confused, disoriented, and finally fall into a state of apathy. This is the ultimate goal of the chaos. Those in power no longer need the people to believe in a single truth. They only need to render the public incapable of distinguishing truth from falsehood. In a state where everything appears suspicious, healthy skepticism is transformed into total intellectual paralysis. At this point, people no longer read the news to expand their minds. They are swallowed by the flow of information. Only those individuals who have equipped themselves with a solid foundation of knowledge and a sharp intellectual agility beforehand can stand firm against this torrent to filter out the golden grains of truth. The second shift in mechanism is the movement of weaponry from reason to emotion, ushering society into what scholars call the post-truth era. Any sovereign well-versed in human nature knows that the masses are rarely persuaded by cold logic. They act upon deep, instinctive drives such as outrage, fear, pride, and hatred. Modern media has been upgraded into a tool to exploit these psychological vulnerabilities to the fullest. The masterminds behind the information machines do not produce news to provide objective facts. They produce emotional bait. A sensationalist headline, an image stripped of its context, or a sophisticatedly inflammatory choice of words are all designed like a hook coated in the venom of agitation. When an individual lacking foundational knowledge encounters this information, their primal nature reacts before their rational humanity. They become instantly outraged, click share, spread the information, and leave comments riddled with prejudice. They believe they are exercising justice or contributing to the social discourse, but in reality, they are merely acting as diligent ants, carrying the weight of power for the elite. If you lack knowledge of economics, you will easily believe in illusory promises of wealth redistribution policies. If you lack knowledge of history, you will easily be deceived by those who rewrite the past to serve current agendas. If you do not understand logic, you will fail to realize you are being manipulated by ad hominem or strawman fallacies. Knowledge today acts as a suit of defensive armor. Without it, reading the news is no different from walking barefoot into a forest full of thorns and venomous snakes. One cannot expect the truth to reveal itself transparently on the page, for the page is a chessboard where powers are constantly moving pawns to capture the minds of the masses. The third manipulation mechanism, and perhaps the most sophisticated trap, is the creation of labyrinths of illusion through algorithms. In the past, the press was a collective voice, broadcasting the same message to everyone. Even if it was an imposed message, at least the masses shared a common reality. Today, with the aid of modern data manipulation technologies, the ruling class and profiteering forces have fragmented the masses into countless isolated islands. Algorithms record every glance, every tiny spark of attention from a user, and from there, weave an invisible cage around their mind. This labyrinth only reflects what the user wants to see, reinforcing the prejudices they already carry. If a person believes in a conspiracy theory, by the next day, their media world will be flooded with fake evidence to prove that conspiracy theory is absolute truth. Those without a solid intellectual foundation will quickly fall into the trap of complacency. They read the news every day and see that the world always agrees with them, giving birth to an illusion of wisdom. They have no idea they are locked in echo chambers, where the only sound they hear is the resonance of their own myopia. Fragmenting the masses is a masterstroke of governance. When people are divided into extremist factions, blindly defending their own illusory realities and hating those who do not share their views, they will exhaust their energy in pointless arguments. They will be preoccupied with tearing each other apart at the bottom of the well, forgetting to look up at the dark clouds gathering at the peak of the sky. The sovereign then only needs to sit on high, leisurely observing the ordered chaos they have created. There is no easier way to break a will than to let that will wear itself out in pre-orchestrated conflicts. It is precisely because of these three brutal mechanisms, which are information overload, the art of post-truth emotional manipulation, and the labyrinth of fragmenting algorithms, that the theorem of knowledge acquisition has completely reversed. Knowledge is no longer the result of reading the news. Knowledge must be the prerequisite for reading the news. We need to flip the issue to dissect how an ordinary citizen can survive and maintain their intellectual self-respect in this context. Identifying these ploys is not about becoming sinister, but about building an impregnable fortress of the mind. To avoid being turned into a tool, a human must possess a special quality, what pragmatic thinkers call intellectual agility. First, the reader must have a firm foundational knowledge of methodology and critical thinking. When receiving information, the first reflex should not be to believe or share, but to exercise strategic skepticism. Who benefits most when this information is released? From where were these figures extracted, and are there any facts being intentionally hidden to alter the overall picture? These cold questions are the shield that deflects the arrows of public opinion guidance. When you have knowledge, you do not read what is written, you read what is hidden behind the words. You see through to the true motive of the person holding the pen. Second, possessing knowledge helps a person control their own greed and fear. Manipulators always know how to distort the truth to trigger primitive survival responses. When a panic is inflated by the media, the uneducated masses will trample over one another seeking a false sense of security. But a person of deep intellect will recognize the cyclical nature of events. They maintain a head as cold as ice, standing outside the emotional storm and steering their own destiny instead of entrusting it to the flow of the crowd. This composure does not come from blind courage, it comes from clearly understanding the mechanics of the game of power. Third, a knowledgeable person knows how to diversify their own sources of truth. They understand that no single newspaper and no single individual holds the entirety of truth. Instead of obediently consuming the mental food prepared by algorithms, they proactively seek out opposing viewpoints. They intentionally expose themselves to arguments that challenge their own beliefs. This requires great courage, for nothing is more painful to the human ego than admitting one's understanding is incomplete. But only by continuously shattering and rebuilding one's own cognitive system can a human escape the invisible cage of the forces silently shaping their worldview. In summary, the era of innocence, when the printed page carried the light of pure truth, has vanished into the past forever. We are living in a cognitive battlefield where information is a sharp piece of weaponry, and the minds of the people are empty territories waiting to be conquered. Rulers and interest groups have honed the art of manipulation to a level of perfection. They surround us with noise, strike down our reason with emotional bait, and isolate us within mirrors reflecting our own prejudices. The naked truth is that no one is coming to save your mind. If you enter today's media world with an empty head and a heart too easily swayed, you will immediately become vulnerable prey, a cheap source of fuel for the power machines of others. Reading the news is no longer a relaxing act to gain knowledge, it is a battle for intellectual survival. One must have knowledge first. One must have the armor of logical thinking, historical understanding, and the ability to control instinct, before one has the standing and the courage to open a news page without being enslaved by it. Power always belongs to the one who knows how to exploit the ignorance of others. And the only true freedom in this age of surplus is the capacity to recognize a lie and refuse to become a part of it.